Tonight, Republican Civil War. The GOP convention erupts into chaos. Pandemonium as never-Trump forces mount a wild final fight to stop him. And Trump's campaign manager slams the Republicans not speaking here, including Ohio Governor John Kasich, saying Kasich is embarrassing his state. Tonight, Kasich responds in an exclusive interview with NBC News. Mind of a killer who targeted and assassinated police officers in Baton Rouge. Inside his twisted history. Olympics bombshell. The world's anti-doping agency calls for the entire Russian team to be banned from Rio. Unprecedented in the history of the Games. And center stage, she could be the next First Lady of the United States. Tonight, Melania Trump steps into the biggest spotlight of her life. Nightly News begins right now.
The Republican National Convention. This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, reporting tonight from Cleveland.
Good evening. The Stop Trump movement, if not DOA here in Cleveland, is certainly on life support after a dramatic start to the Republican convention. There were some raucous moments here on the floor behind us this afternoon, an old-fashioned floor fight. But it may have been the last gasp of a movement that has dogged Trump throughout the primaries, and it was enough to once again highlight the deep divisions in this party, even now at the start of what is normally a celebration of purpose and unity. Our team is all here, and we're going to kick off our coverage with more on today's drama and NBC's Hallie Jackson.
Drama like we haven't seen in decades.
You are ignoring delegates who have been elected to this convention.
A revolt from grassroots Republicans forcing a furious floor fight to make a mess of the convention's first day. The entire Colorado delegation walking off.
They cheated. I mean, that's what you just saw. You saw them violate their own rules.
This is not a meeting of the Republican National Committee. This is a meeting of brown shirts.
All of it airing live, exactly what the Trump campaign had hoped to avoid. Have we seen anything like this before in recent memory?
Well, not since maybe 1976. So that goes way back. So there are now a lot of angry delegates.
Brushed off by the campaign as a disgruntled minority, those delegates almost certainly won't unseat Trump, but they hope to undercut him by publicly showing how unpopular he is. About 6 in 10 Republicans not satisfied with him as the nominee. Some Republicans showing it by not showing up at all, notably not on stage, any of the Bush family. Mitt Romney vacationing, vulnerable senators skipping out. John McCain on the campaign trail instead.
Besides, it's a lot nicer here than Cleveland.
Does it have any reason?
As with all due respect to Cleveland.
In a week meant to bring the party together, far from a unifying start, as Trump's top aide hits former rival and fellow Republican John Kasich, Ohio's governor who won't attend.
He's making a big mistake. He chose not to, and we think that was a wrong decision. He's embarrassing the state, frankly.
Bob Dole, who endorsed Trump, will be here, the only former GOP nominee to attend, telling NBC's Andrea Mitchell.
They decided not to come, so that's their choice. But I bet they watch it on TV.
More than unity, this week's also about proving Trump is presidential material, stronger on national security, which is why speakers tonight will hammer Hillary Clinton on Benghazi, the focus on law and order, and true to Trump form, a little showbiz on the side.
Both come from television, and so I understand, part of his life he's lived, and especially business and being a CEO, so, I've always looked up to him.
At the start of what's typically a party infomercial, Donald Trump selling himself. A lot of the action came from the Colorado delegation, sitting about as far from the stage as you can possibly get. Maybe no coincidence that this is their view of Melania Trump, who will be headlining tonight. Donald Trump introducing her. Non-traditional to see the candidate on night one. Then again, a lot about his campaign has been unconventional. Lester?
And Hallie, back to Governor Kasich. He's laughing off the suggestion that he is embarrassing his state by skipping the convention. In an exclusive interview with NBC News, he defended his decision and he questioned whether Trump's message will go over well with Ohio voters.
I want to thank you all for coming in. This is unprecedented.
This afternoon, just blocks from the Q Arena, Governor John Kasich thanking out-of-state police who were part of the convention security operation. But this, the governor told me, is about as close as he plans to get to the convention itself. His mind made up.
If Donald Trump called you right now and said, bygones be bygones, come over and speak this week.
Well, no, he'd have to change everything that he says. We can't be attacking Muslims and Hispanics and trying to shut down trade and not caring about the debt. Those are all problems for me. And so it's not, I don't hold any personal animus towards Donald Trump. We just are two companies that have different values, different directions, and different philosophies.
He's the governor of the state.
Kasich is the only, yeah, and you know what? He's making a big mistake. He's making a big mistake.
Paul Manafort, campaign chairman for Donald Trump, said today that you are embarrassing your state by your failure to participate in the convention. Does that offend you?
I heard about it. I laughed. Look, Ohio's doing great, and you know, people in the state, at least today, still like me, and I'm not. No, that's just politics.
Some might be scratching their heads wondering, is this in some ways a tacit endorsement of Hillary Clinton's candidacy?
No. Look, I just wrote an op-ed piece. You know, my concern about Hillary is she panders. You know, who's driving the bus? Is it Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton? Every time I turn around, she's promising another group. That's not what we need in the country. We need this country to come together with real solutions, stop dividing people, stop scapegoating people, and let's see some real leadership.
Ohio is a key state in the electoral map, and many believe crucial to win the White House.
Can Donald Trump win in Ohio?
I think it's real hard if you don't have a unifying message. And if you go too hard one way or too hard the other, it's very difficult to win. So if you're not a unifier, it's a real challenge.
In our conversation, Governor Kasich said it's too early to know whether he will make another White House run in 2020. With us here now and throughout the conventions, Chuck Todd and Savannah Guthrie. Good to see both of you. Chuck, let me start off with you. We saw that flare-up today, the Stop Trump movement flare-up. It was quickly extinguished, but will it linger here?
It could linger because of how they extinguished it, number one, and it also could linger because of how they started their day. And I go back to this Kasich situation. Here they are trying to get the party united. But then the campaign chairman for the presumptive nominee still takes a shot at the home state governor. He's not here. Ohio's been punished for not being here, all of that stuff. But that doesn't send a unifying message. Then you have the incident that happened here where there's a lot of delegates that feel as if their voice was squashed. It's one thing to lose a vote. It's another thing not to feel like you had an opportunity. So they've got to be careful here that it doesn't build. This disunity is already sort of sitting on a nice edge. They got to hope that didn't add fuel to the fire.
And Savannah, that's clearly not the story they want people taking away from here. What is the story? What do they have to do this week?
This is a big opportunity. I mean, there are a few really big moments in a presidential campaign. The VP rollout is one. The conventions are another. And I think Donald Trump has an opportunity and a need to state an affirmative message for himself. Look, we've seen in opinion poll after opinion poll that Hillary Clinton has very high negative ratings. So in that sense, that work is done for the Trump campaign. But he needs to convince people that he's up to the job. I saw a poll recently, 60% of those asked didn't even think he was qualified to hold the office of the presidency. That is a threshold question. And these few days gave him an opportunity to answer it for viewers who might not always be paying attention to politics.
And we'll be hearing from him very shortly this evening. Thank you.
That's sure.
As the drama plays out inside the arena, outside there is drama as well. Concerns about safety and security and a heavy police presence as protesters take to the streets. NBC's Stephanie Gosk is at one of those rallies. Stephanie, what's happening out there?
Lester, this is one of the largest demonstrations that we've seen today, but instead of the thousands of people that were predicted, there really only are hundreds here. And you get a sense of how the police have been handling the protesters throughout the day as well, really standing on the side and allowing these rallies to take place and then end very naturally. There have only been 2 arrests, and we've been looking for people carrying guns as well. There were fears with Ohio's open carry that there might be more people. We've really only seen a handful. The people out here today have been from across the political spectrum, a group of bikers from across the country, pro-Trump, as well as Black Lives Matters activists. But any fears that this was going to erupt in violence the first day of the convention so far seem unwarranted. Lester?
All right, Stephanie Goss, thank you. Meantime, Trump's rival Hillary Clinton is throwing counterpunches, speaking at the NAACP's annual convention. She said Donald Trump will worsen the divides in this country. She also criticized him for declining to speak at that same event. And Clinton addressed the recent attacks on police and the shootings by police, saying, quote, "This madness has to stop." And that brings us to another major story we're following, the ambush that killed 3 law enforcement officers in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Police now say those officers were targeted. They were essentially assassinated, and we're learning much more about the shooter from what he left behind on social media. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez has that for us.
Today, in chilling detail, authorities describe how Gavin Long, on his 29th birthday, targeted cops.
This was a diabolical attack on the very fabric of society.
Just before 9 a.m. Sunday, about a mile from Baton Rouge Police Headquarters, Long was carrying 2 rifles and a 9mm handgun. He parked at this convenience store where he spotted an empty police car. He walked around the building where he snuck up behind 3 officers, shooting them at close range and killing them.
Shot fired, officer down! Shot fired, officer down!
Gunmen then ran, ignoring civilians, before stopping to shoot other officers. After a gun battle, a SWAT team finally shot him dead from 100 yards away.
I cannot be more proud of my SWAT team. We've been questioned for the last 3 or 4 weeks about our militarized tactics because we are up against a force that is not playing by the rules.
A former Marine sergeant, Long once deployed to Iraq for 6 months.
Because I'm an alpha male. I stand up.
One of his recent YouTube videos advocated violence following the police-involved shooting death of Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge 2 weeks ago.
Victims fighting their bullies, 100% have been successful through fighting back.
Long recently posted video of himself walking the streets of Dallas just 3 days after 5 cops were shot and killed in that city.
Why did he come to Baton Rouge? Why did he pick Baton Rouge? Why did he pick that location right there?
Tonight, tributes are flooding in for those killed. Deputy Brad Garofalo with the sheriff's office for 24 years. Officer Matthew Gerald, a rookie. And Montrell Jackson, a 10-year veteran of the police force and a new proud father.
He died serving Baton Rouge, and I just hope we can come together as one.
Today, President Obama called local authorities as well as the victims' families. One of the sheriff's deputies who was injured in this lot was shot in the head and the stomach. Tonight, he remains in critical condition, and authorities across the country are on alert. Police in New York, Baltimore, and Fort Worth are among those patrolling in pairs. Lester.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez, thank you. And overseas, some terrifying moments aboard a train in Germany where police say a suspect with an axe and a knife attacked passengers, severely injuring at least 3 of them. 10 to 20 others have non-life-threatening injuries. A SWAT team shot and killed the attacker, described as a 17-year-old Afghan refugee. A 3rd police officer has been found not guilty in a case that sparked riots in Baltimore. Lieutenant Brian Rice is now the highest-ranking officer to be acquitted in Freddie Gray's death. Gray suffered a fatal spinal injury in police custody last year. 6 officers were charged. 2 have yet to be tried. One of the cases resulted in mistrial. At the White House today, President Obama awarded the Medal of Honor to a hero chopper pilot from the Vietnam War. Retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Charles Kettles is credited with saving the lives of 44 U.S. troops during a 1967 ambush, including 8 soldiers who couldn't reach the evacuation helicopters. Kettles and his crew swooped in. They took 2 mortar hits and enemy gunfire, but managed to save all 8 in that damaged helicopter. Still ahead tonight, that Olympics bombshell. Will one of Team USA's top rivals be banned from competing in Rio over stunning allegations of cheating? Also, Melania's moment, surprising things you may not know about Mrs. Trump as she gets ready for her spotlight in prime time. We're back from Cleveland, the big event here, and we're less than 3 weeks until another big event, the Olympic Games in Rio. Today, independent investigators dropped a bombshell confirming allegations of state-sponsored doping by Russia, what may be the biggest doping scandal in the history of sports. The announcement was quickly followed by a call for the Russians to be banned from the Games, a monumental decision that could come any day. NBC's Miguel Almaguer has details.
Could it be the dream of a Russian sweep? Yes, it is. Goal.
Russia's dominance in Sochi was fueled by performance-enhancing drugs, according to an independent investigation released today.
Is it going to be a Russian celebration? Yes, it is.
Now the World Anti-Doping Agency says Russia should be barred from the Summer Olympics. The report saying the cheating was sanctioned by the highest levels of government.
The Moscow laboratory operated for the protection of doped Russian athletes within a state-directed fail-safe system.
Grigory Rodchenkov, Moscow's former anti-doping director, detailed how Russia cheated. Inside a drug testing lab in Sochi, the Russians are said to have built a mouse hole where dirty samples were passed through, emptied, and replaced with clean samples.
It's a level of corruption of the Olympic Games that we can't tolerate.
It's now up to the International Olympic Committee to decide punishment. A ban would be unprecedented. Today, Russia's president said the report is based on the testimony of one man.
For Katie Ulander, who lost bronze to a Russian by 0.04 of a second,
She pushes Katie Ulander off the podium.
It's been a long time coming.
When I lost, I was heartbroken, but it was more for my country.
Now, with just 18 days until Rio, the decision to keep Russian athletes away from competition could come as early as tomorrow. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News.
When we come back, she's rarely heard on the campaign trail, but tonight she will be the star of the RNC. Melania Trump takes center stage. We're back from Cleveland, where tonight the woman who could be the next First Lady of the United States will take center stage. Melania Trump, the former model turned businesswoman, the headliner on night one of this convention, making the case for her husband. Here's NBC's Cynthia McFadden.
We have seen her poised, sometimes fierce, always stunning, at debate after debate. But tonight, Melania Trump will dive into the political deep end with a primetime speech expected to focus on her husband's softer side as a family man. They met in the late 1990s.
My supermodel. Where's my supermodel? Melania.
And married in 2005. She has rarely spoken on the road this year, bypassing the role of character witness for her husband on the campaign trail for mother to their 10-year-old son, Barron, back in New York.
I like to keep it life as normal as possible for my son, Baton.
Normal hardly seems the right word. Young Barron, his mother said in Parenting magazine, has his own floor in the 3-floor Trump penthouse. She is not your typical stay-at-home mother. A successful model since she was 16, she's posed in the buff on a fur rug on the cover of British GQ. But there is more than meets the eye. She speaks 5 languages, having grown up in then-communist Yugoslavia.
She has to be the the straight arrow to his zigs and zags.
Alex Kaczynski interviewed Mrs. Trump for Harper's Bazaar last fall. What was your overall impression?
She's not an ad-libber. She's not a comedian. And she strikes me as somebody who's very patient with her husband's antics.
Her only public advice to her husband has been to suggest he tweet less, advice he seems not to have taken.
I tell him what I think. Sometimes he listens, sometimes he don't.
She would be the first foreign-born First Lady since John Quincy Adams' wife, Louisa. The New York Times called her the silent partner. Tonight, that changes. Cynthia McFadden, NBC News, New York.
When we come back, some final thoughts with our Tom Brokaw on this first evening in the Republican National Convention. We'll be back. Finally tonight, there is nothing more partisan than one of these conventions. It's each party's chance to kind of show the world how they want to be seen, what they're all about. Sometimes, though, it's fun to step away from the politics and take in the pageantry, the choreography, the awkwardness sometimes. It's kind of the way democracy is. We're joined now by Tom Brokaw, a man who's been to a lot of these conventions. Tom, so much history, our democracy, our election process is built on these pillars. But do you think this one could turn history on its ear in some form or fashion?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. If Donald Trump captures the Republican Party, he will have changed things profoundly for the GOP. It used to be the party of the captains of industry and old money, and Richard Nixon took it to the south, Ronald Reagan to the west. Now a lot of establishment Republicans are staying home, not going to be here because they can't support him. But he has created another constituency. That will be the test.
And then you look around, it still looks like Republican and Democratic conventions of home.
Well, it does, because there's a certain ritualistic quality about it, and there's a setting about it as well. The great test is whether or not you can make what you do here endure, not just because of the setting, but because of the politics and the philosophy that you bring to this great race for the presidency.
Well, it is great to have you along for our coverage. We want to let our viewers know that our primetime coverage of the Republican National Convention starts at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. We hope you can join us. For now, that's going to do it for us on this Monday night. I'm Lester Holt. For all of us at NBC News, thank you for watching, and good night from Cleveland.